Hey, what's happening? It is February 22nd, a Monday. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let There Be Talk. This episode is brought to you by my fantastic sponsor, Earthquaker Devices. These guys are unbelievable. They make rock and roll stomp boxes. You play any kind of guitar, bass, keyboards, whatever. Not just rock and roll. I don't know why I even call them that. They could be soul, hip hop, country, jazz, fusion. What else? Even maybe some orchestra action, you know. Da-na-na-na, wah-wah-wah-wah. Anyway, check them out, Earthquaker Devices. They make handmade stomp boxes out of Akron, Ohio, or as I call it, Devo, Ohio. They got some of the funniest name pedals, too. So when you're up on stage, maybe if you're doing a gig on mushrooms, you can look down and just laugh at the names like Interstellar Orbiter, Gray Channel, or the Tentacles. Tentacles, I'm going to give you some tentacles on 10. Let the tentacles light. Out of my mind today. Yes, Pitch Bay, or the Depths, Cloven Hoof. I love the names. Anyway, do yourself a favor and get yourself a stomp box by Earthquaker Devices. Check them out, earthquakerdevices.com, or follow them on Twitter or Instagram. Super, super cool people and amazing company. Akron, Ohio, Earthquaker Devices. All right, what's happening? Let's get to the episode today. This episode is a really, it was a fun episode to do. I did it a couple weeks back, and I did it at a sushi bar. Unusual. I've only done 2 episodes now outside of my house or the studio, and one was with Scott Holiday from Rival Sons. He wanted to do an episode where he waited tables back in the day, and this episode is with the bass god himself, Phil Soussan, who wrote the smash hit Shot in the Dark for Ozzy. He opened a sushi restaurant up the street from my house that is phenomenal over here in the Shoke, Sherman Oaks, over in the Shoke. And so he wanted to meet there and do the episode. And I thought it was a little unusual at first, like, I don't know how that's going to work. And then it just became a very cool, organic episode. This guy is a super, super cool human, man. It's amazing all the people I've had on the podcast, different musicians. I think, God, all these guys are so cool. It'd be amazing to be in a band with these guys back in the day when you're just dying to have cool guys in a band. I mean, like, you know, Michael Devin or Rudy Sarzo or Phil here, you know, on bass. It would be all bass players, this band. Just bass, Billy Sheehan, just 4 bass guys up front. And then I lead sing. That'd be insane, right? Anyway, what an episode, man. I was talking to Phil and just stuff came out that I had no idea about him. And it just made me love him more. We get into some talk about Jimmy Page. He was in an early rendition of The Firm. He also played in a band that was signed to Jimmy Page's label, with Simon Kirk. That was the Swan Song label. And he also was very good friends with Sam Kinison, which made my eyes light up, my ears when he told me. I was like, yeah, tell me Sam's stories. So I can't thank him enough for doing the episode. And I'll be eating at this restaurant over and over. Very, very kick-ass food. Great weekend. Just got back from Pittsburgh and Columbus, Ohio. And I got to say, man, just shout out to Drew Sample and Jason, the Death Squad Ohio guys. These guys just fucking do it right, man. If every venue I ever did across America was run by these guys, I would just lose my mind how great it would be just traveling around. You know, they care, and they kick ass, man. The shows they cover all the bases, man. They cut no corners. We had an incredible weekend, some great record stores, some incredible food, and great venues, especially Saturday night at Arcade Comedy Theater in Pittsburgh. That was insane. Just a small, very intimate, very cool comedy club. And everybody that came out with the Del Razor shirts and all that, it just fucking feels so good, man. You know, just seeing people show up, butts in the seats. You know I always scream on here like, get the fuck out of your house. I'm coming your way. But that's just because I love doing comedy for people. That, you know, it's a two-way street. I love it as much as you guys love it. You know, it's a bond. And that's what I felt over the weekend, especially with Jason and Drew. Just great guys. And everybody that was at the shows, thank you so much for coming out. It was just awesome. I hope everybody got their new Del Razor shirts, their Dean Del Rey comedy shirts. Sent them out on Thursday. If you don't got them yet, they should be there tomorrow. I sent them on Thursday, and the weekend was here. Thanks for pre-ordering. Another successful run of shirts. You know, getting ready to do another design. So get ready for the new design. And I love that you guys, when you Instagram pictures of you in the shirts, that's so cool. Also, let me give a real quick shout out to, I'm from the Bay Area, of course, and I played music for years. And one of our Bay Area rockers is not doing good. Lead singer from the band, let me get this right here because I want you guys to follow it. I know who they are, but I'm trying to figure out how you can find it. I guess just go to, here it is, at the band WA. So it's worlds apart, but I want you guys to check them out on Twitter, at the band WA. Jason McDavid, shout out to you, man. I know you're not doing good, and I hope that it turns around for you. Keep the candles lit, brother. Shout out to you, man. Bay Area rocker. It's not cool when one of our guys gets sick. 2016, man, a rough one so far. Big time. Anyway, so let's get into the episode. Before I do, just if you want to donate to the podcast, it's patreon.com/Dean Del Rey. Anything helps. You can throw $1, $5, whatever. It doesn't matter. Or just listen, you know. And keep leaving those reviews. Fucking past 500. Thank you, guys. I think we're at 512 now. That is so fucking cool. We passed 500. Now that you know the new goal, 1,000. Got to get to 1,000. I mean, the amount of listeners I have, I keep thinking if everyone left a review, I would be at like 90,000 in a month. That'd be insane. It would just break. It would break iTunes. It would just what the hell? That's all you got to do. Go in there, subscribe, leave a review. Kick ass show. Yeah, kick ass. All right. Before we get into the episode, I'm coming your way, San Jose, with Joey Diaz, March 10, 11, 12. Joey Diaz and I will be at the San Jose Improv. Man, this is going to be fucking metal. Do not miss it. We're coming to get you. Whoa, yeah! What else I got coming up? I'm going to be... I guess that's all that's on the books right now for us road dates. And I'll keep you posted anything else coming up. Love all you guys. And I guess that's about it. I'm glad you guys love that West Coast Boot episode. I love doing it, and I love that company. So that was cool. And the Crystalia episode. Very, very popular. I bet even some ladies listened to that episode. I almost got into some Bill Burr there. Ladies! All right. Keep the candles lit. Here he is, Phil Soussan. Here we are, another episode of Let There Be Talk. Introduce yourself. Great guest today.
I am the great guest, Phil Soussan. Thank you very much for the compliment. I'll take that as a compliment. Great guest.
Yeah.
I like that. Sounds good.
Been trying to get you on since last year for the Bonzo Bash. Hilarious.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's glad to finally be able to do this, because we did hook up at the Bonzo Bash briefly, and then since then there's been another Bonzo Bash, right?
Yeah. So it's been a year.
Here we are, a year and a bit later.
Well, we played together last week at Tracy Gunn's 50th birthday. That was fun, huh?
Yeah, and I have to tell you, you probably do the best Bon Scott I think I've ever heard.
Wow.
Outside of Bon Scott, because when we played, a lot of times you play and then somebody gets up and sings and they do a fantastic job, but you had the timbre in there. I mean, it was fantastic. It sounded great. I thought it did anyway.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. So what are you up to these days? Talk to me. Tell me.
It's funny because I can do Bon and I can do Ozzy. They're kind of the same wheelhouse, I always say.
You can?
I mean, they're
do you do Dio?
I can do Dio, yeah, for sure. I can do Dio big time.
Yeah.
I can sing. It's just, it takes a lot of work to do it every day because I sang for 25 years,
Right.
So when you don't do it for years, it's a muscle. You got to get going again. And,
but it's evident. You can tell when somebody's a singer because it's not just about hitting the notes. It's also about the delivery and the inflection they got in their voice and the phrasing and all of that stuff. And that doesn't go away.
No, you just...
Because that's up here.
Yeah, you figure that out early on.
Yeah.
I think I was blessed by studying Bon Scott because of his nuances and the way that he phrased and stuff,
Right.
By the way, we're at your restaurant. And
We are.
I've only done one other interview at a restaurant, and it was Scott from Rival Sons.
Oh, wow.
He wanted me to interview him at the place he used to wait tables in Huntington Beach.
That's kind of cool. Kind of cool. I'm not waiting tables here. This is my restaurant.
Yeah.
And we're at it's a Japanese restaurant. It's called
Sushi?
Kaiju. It's a sushi restaurant. We've been open for pushing 8 months here, and it's right in the heart of Sherman Oaks.
Yeah, the Shoke.
The
as
Shoke.
Gilby Clark calls it, the Shoke. I know. I just moved to the hood, so this is beautiful. That it's a block, not a
Very
block,
convenient.
but close to my house. And you have two of the chefs from my favorite old sushi restaurant, Koi.
Absolutely.
So this is a fucking dream come true for me.
Our main chef is his name is Go Nakabayashi, or we just call him Go for short, which is his first name or last name actually, but. He was over at another restaurant that we might have mentioned. And then we also have a Mark Hayashi as well, who was recently the main sushi chef at Koi as well. So we have some great people. If you could see this place, I'll point the microphone so you can have a quick look.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it's really beautiful. It's got a unique design. It's got a great hang sort of atmosphere.
Parking.
And the quality of parking, the food quality is sensational. We've really gone for old world sushi. So if you ever saw the movie Hero Dreams of Sushi, you get a good idea of where we're coming from. Even though I ended that sentence with a preposition. But old style presentation, old style, but phenomenal quality. We've been called the best. A couple of people have called us the best in LA, and those are big reviewers. So it's very nice, but we'll see.
Now, I've been eating sushi, I think only about 10 years.
Oh.
Because, of course, growing up, I was just like, I ain't eating that, you know what I mean?
Right.
And, raw fish, and then somebody turns you on to the right stuff, and you're like, oh, my God, this is great. And you become a total junkie. When did you start eating sushi?
The first time I did was I went with my friend Chrissy Wood to the Kensington Hilton in London. And Chrissy was Ronnie Wood's ex-wife, and we were very good friends. And she said she took me there with Anita Pallenberg.
Oh, wow.
And so she said, we're going to go for sushi. There was only 2 places you could get sushi in London at the time. And I said, what is it? She said, it's raw fish.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was a whole to-do with the presentation.
What year was this?
Oh, this had to be like 1980.
Wow.
Right?
80.
Yeah. So we went, and they served up this little block of tuna, and I really didn't know what to make of it. And it wasn't like it is now. I sort of gingerly nibbled at it and thought, okay. But I became very taken with the whole Japanese culture. I loved the sound of the language, and I thought how alien it is, and how alien it would be to learn something, such a different type of language. Not a language that's based on a romantic language like English or French or German, or Italian rather, but more a language which has no syntax in common. It's so different. So, hang on a second.
So you started to learn Japanese?
Later on, yeah.
Right.
I started to travel to Japan a lot, and when I started getting there, I realized very quickly that it was something you had to learn. Have you been to Japan?
Oh, I love it. It's my favorite.
Okay, me too.
I love it because of the rock and roll. It's so alive there, and I love their love of everything like vintage Americana. You know, if it's Elvis Presley, or if it's Levi's, or it's if it's Motley Crue, or if whatever it is, they go full on, and they have just the greatest stuff there.
But, you know, now they have their own culture, and they're very proud of it. At one time, the first time I went, anything American was king. Now, you know, they all had, like, the same black hair, the same... Now everyone looks different. They've got different colored hair. They've got different colored, you know, kind of outfits, and their own bands, and they've got their own unique identity, which I celebrate as well. It's fantastic. But there was still a very cool magic about it. Going to Japan was like going to another planet for me.
It was always my dream, you know, and then I finally got there.
So I went there one time, or more than one time, and then, you know, a lot of people speak English, a lot of people speak Japanese, and on a couple of occasions I went there, and I wandered off the beaten path, went round a corner, and the next thing got lost. Nothing was in English. Everything was written in katakana, hiragana, and I couldn't read, and I couldn't speak, and no one could speak English. And then I forgot the name of the hotel.
Oh, no.
And then I'm thinking, I don't have a card. I don't have anything from the hotel. I've got an anonymous key. How the hell do I get back?
Oh, no.
And at that point, I thought, you know, when I do get back, be it in a few minutes or a few years, it might be a good idea to sort of, you know, something I'd like to do is learn the language. So I started to learn it.
How did you learn it? Was it online course or?
No, I went to evening classes.
Evening classes in LA?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a Japanese school.
It's one of the hardest languages, right?
I guess all languages are hard, but it's definitely alien. A teacher walked in day one and started talking Japanese, and I said, "Well, hold on a second. I don't know anything." And they said, "Well, we're going to keep you ahead of the game. You're going to get used to hearing it all the time, and eventually we'll fill in the gaps for you."
Wow.
And you started to learn to read and write it simultaneously.
Writing
really
it
helps.
is crazy, right? It's all those symbols. I mean,
There's 3 alphabets.
3 alphabets.
Yeah, and 2 of them are phonetic alphabets, and 1 of them is a symbolic and also phonetic alphabet, which is kanji. So I don't want to get too deep into it, but basically they do have syllable sounds that you can write.
Right.
And once you understand that, you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
Give us some Japanese right now.
Nihongo o hanashimasu ka?
What was that?
Do you speak Japanese? Oh, tsukaresama desu, which means literally you must be very tired, but it's usually what you tell somebody when they finish working for the day. It's a compliment.
Yeah.
You've worked yourself to the bone.
I used to know a lot of Spanish.
Yeah.
And then I've lost it. And last year's resolution was to quit sugar and learn Spanish again.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. This year, trying to quit sugar and learn Spanish again. You know? I absolutely think it's a must to learn another language.
Yeah.
You know, the food is
So-
incredible. Right now we're eating rock shrimp.
Rock shrimp.
Which
This is one of our signature appetizer dishes. You have to have one of these.
what is
this
it,
is
like tuna on a cracker?
It's called a kaiju. Pick it up with your fingers because you'll drop
Okay.
it. It's on a crispy wonton with a flour on the top.
All right.
And this is one of the signature appetizers that we do. So how are we doing with this?
What is this? Oh my God.
Good, right?
Oh, what is it?
It's basically a spicy tuna
Yep.
on a crispy wonton with secret garnishes
Man, it's good.
and a flour on the top.
Wow, so good.
Anyway,
So, of course, you have sushi with Ron Wood's ex-wife, and then do you like it right away, or it was definitely different back then? You know, it's like tuna tartare, basically. It was a block of tuna, right?
I think I like the cultural difference of a sushi restaurant versus a conventional restaurant. The service is, lots and lots of little plates and a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of traditional kind of,
Yeah, pride. There's pride. There's tradition. It's a lot like things I love, like old hot rod painters, guys that paint motorcycles or build motorcycles, or guys that build, like Olympic. They build guitars. Anything from hand. It's a tradition. No computers.
No.
Something they learned maybe from their grandfather or somebody and passed down generations, and that's definitely what Japan is. It's tradition passed down generations.
Yeah, and it's the whole culture of eating, like the whole culture of tea.
Yeah.
The tea is a performance, and even eating is a performance. It's not just feeding.
Yeah.
And I think all of that stuff is fascinating. So, I love that. But I've always been multicultural. I've always loved that kind of stuff, and I speak a lot of languages.
Yeah?
Not just Japanese. Yeah, I speak French fluently.
Wow.
So
You're like a smart rocker. Right? You know what I mean?
too smart for my own good. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure there's so many rockers we know. They barely speak English.
Well, I was at pre-med, so I was going to go be a doctor.
Right.
And
Oh,
one day,
wow.
I made the second hardest decision in my life, which is to play music full time
Let's get into that. Where do you grow up?
in London.
In London.
Yeah, exactly.
And-
Born in Maida Vale, which is right behind Abbey Road,
Wow.
Paddington.
What's the stuff that gets you going? Is it the Beatles?
Oh God, I love the Beatles, of course. I loved all the English music.
I'm just saying, what was the one that knocked you out? Like, I gotta play rock.
Well, funnily enough, I'll tell you the exact time, date, moment, and everything. I'd always played music, but it was 1972, watching Top of the Pops.
Yep.
And David Bowie came on there and did Starman.
Wow.
And I froze and I said, oh my God, it just spoke to me. It wasn't like I want to do that. It's something lit up in my head. Here's a guy, I was big time into science fiction, so it's the idea of Starman, the idea of Space Odyssey, all that kind of stuff was just front and center. 1969, we put a man on the moon.
Yeah.
As color TV appeared, Woodstock. All of this was like a new age. And so the idea was like, before you know it, it's going to be IGY. We're going to be flying around all over the universe and time travel and everything else. To a kid who's like 9-10 years old at that time, this is just like, oh boy, I was born right into this would be like the Jetsons, right?
Yeah.
So it was exciting. And there's David Bowie, who's sort of like an androgynous alien kind of weirdo. And he might have been weird to everybody else, but I identified with it completely.
Yeah. Man, he really also was such like an artist. So right away you're into something good. You know what I mean? It's not like you saw Kiss and then got to David Bowie or whatever, because it's before Kiss. But what I'm saying is your gateway, which I call a lot of people call Kiss their gateway or Zeppelin their gateway drug to rock. Yours was something incredibly artistic, which is Bowie.
But it wasn't my musical introduction. I loved the bands I loved at the time were Free, T-Rex, and these bands that were
Andy Fraser,
Slade.
right?
Andy Fraser was one of the reasons I wanted to play bass. Him and McCartney. But Andy Fraser, when I heard A Little Bit of Love, and I thought, and the irony is, he doesn't play through half that song. The same as All Right Now. He doesn't play halfway through the song, so he's only playing half the stuff. But it was a space that he left in there that he had an incredible way of playing.
That Fire and Water record is one of the best records ever made. And it takes you on this emotional journey. It's incredible. And it's three dudes barely playing. Yeah. I mean, when it comes on, it's like boom, 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 ba-dum, boom, boom. You know, and that voice is up there. You're just like, what?
Right on pony.
Oh, man.
Yes. Amazing singer. Paul.
Amazing singer.
And great talent. And nobody really knows this, but Andy Fraser's the guy that wrote most of that stuff.
That's what's so crazy. He just passed recently.
Of course he did.
Which is wild, you know, because...
one of my big heroes.
When you had a guy like that, he's basically been out of the spotlight for 30 years, and he was one of the greatest in the of classic rock.
Absolutely.
And the guitar player Paul, you know, is just unbelievable.
Yeah. And you know, my first real band was in 1981, I suppose, or the end of '81. I mean, I had lots of bands, but that was the first one that was signed to a deal. It was a band called Wildlife. It was Simon Kirk's band. So I played with Simon.
You did?
We were managed by Peter Grant, and we recorded the last album on Swan Song Records.
So that was part of the Swan Song, like Bad Company, and then Simon Kirk had a side band?
Well, Bad Company had split up.
Oh, gotcha. And then I'm going to do something else.
Yeah. So we did this album, and then that's how I met Jimmy Page.
Oh.
And from Jimmy Page, I started, after that, my band folded. I got a call from Jimmy. I got a call from Phil Carlo, who's the guy who worked for Jimmy, and he said, Phil, Jimmy would like to put a band together with you. Would you be interested? And I said, nah, tell him to fuck off. No, that's not what I said. I said, are you kidding? I mean, Jimmy, I was a huge fan.
Right.
And Jimmy was very mysterious.
Wow.
I never saw him around, never saw him anywhere. He was, he had been in hiatus, and he'd been on a bit of a, not hiatus, what am I...
Is this after Zeppelin, before the Firm?
Absolutely. We put the Firm together. So the original band was Jimmy, myself, and Chris Slade. Then Chris Slade went off on tour, and we got, of all people, Rat Scabies to play drums.
Really?
From the Dams.
What was that like?
It was very unlikely. I said to Jimmy, why Rat? And he said, well, you know, I think if John Bonham was alive today, he'd sound like Rat Scabies. So we said, okay, let's get him in. And we played. We had a great time.
Now, when you hit the call to play with Jimmy Page, I mean, you got to be losing your fucking mind, man, because this is the biggest guitar player and the biggest band. And we're
mysterious guitar player. I mean, nobody knew who he was. Nobody believed who he was.
I know.
We'd hang out sometimes. We'd go out on the town, and somehow something would happen, and I would say, look, that's Jimmy Page over there. They'd go, no. And they'd tell me to F off.
Man.
Fuck off. That's not Jimmy Page. What are you talking about?
Let's get into a little bit before we go into more of this.
I'm going to stop you for a second.
Yeah.
You have to try. This is probably one of the best things we do. This is a sea bream carpaccio with a salted plum sauce.
All right. Wow. Unbelievable.
That's good, isn't it?
It's weird because it's salty and sweet at the same time. It's
Absolutely.
incredible
So
taste.
you taste the fish, right?
Wow, yeah. Are you kidding me? It's incredible.
Wow.
Man, that is good. This is a great episode. Eating great food and...
Food and rock and roll. I mean,
food and rock and roll.
If music be the food of love, play on.
Let me talk to you a little bit about Peter Grant, because I absolutely worshipped Peter Grant. There's an incredible BBC documentary on him. And when
Are you talking about Music Moguls?
I don't know what it was called. I just have it at my house. It's an hour long on him, and you really find out about Peter Grant, you know, the early days of the wrestling or whatever, and then all his ideas were so amazing. Like when bands played in America, it was a 90-10 split, and the band got 10%. When Zeppelin played America, he said it's 90-10, and we take the 90.
Absolutely.
And
he changed the business for everybody.
He changed the business, and the arenas were like, no. And he's like, all right, fuck off. And they figured out 10% of Zeppelin is better than none. So they went with it. Also, he had a thing, Zeppelin never on TV. No Johnny
Never.
Carson, no Midnight Special, Don Kirshner, no American Bandstand, none of that. If you wanted to see Zeppelin, you had to pay to see Zeppelin. And what I'm getting at is, you and I talked a couple days ago, and you said you're extremely good at social media. And I said, well, I have to be, which is a bummer because I really, really worship mystique. And that's what I love about old rock and roll, the mystique, because we didn't have the instant gratification of them. But now, if I don't constantly keep in contact with fans and friends and everybody, you're out of the game. It's such a weird game because people need to know everything about you.
They expect to.
They expect to.
Absolutely. That's one of the downsides of social media, because when I was a kid, and I thought I was a pretty good bass player, and I'm up and coming, and, well, people told me I was good, and I had a lot of classical training I played violin for years, so I had the music background behind it. And so when I heard about John Bonham passing away, I wrote a letter. I looked on the back of an album, and I saw Joan Hudson's address, and I thought, I don't know who Joan Hudson is, but that's an address. And I sent a letter to Joan Hudson and said, hey, you pass this on to Jimmy. And it was a letter of introduction. It was saying, hey, if you ever want to, it's a new band or whatever, I'd love to be able to come down and just play. Just have an audition, anything. I don't know how it's going to work. I guess I didn't really expect to get a response from it. And guess what? I didn't get a response.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. And so I forgot about it. It wasn't until years later I found myself on the label, and I was in the offices at 484 Kings Road, and I went into Sean, the girl who was a secretary over there. I said, what's in that room? She said, oh, that's where we put all the mail that comes in. And I went in there, and there was literally a pile of mail about 4.5 feet high. Nobody had ever opened.
Yeah.
There was nothing else in this room.
Wow.
And I said, what is this? And she goes, well, I said, can I open some of it? She goes, yeah, sure. Nobody else does. So I sat down on the floor and started opening letters. And I found demo tapes in there. I found a demo tape from a band that was looking for a deal, and there was a cassette in there, and the band was The Knack, and the song was My Sharona.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
No, and Joan Hudson was my accountant at that time.
Wow.
Because of the affiliation. So I knew who Joan Hudson was. She was the accountant. She was a bit like the business manager, I suppose. And I rummaged through that pile trying to find that letter, because if I found it, I was going to steal it back. I didn't want anybody to ever read it again.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find it.
Wow. That's amazing. I always think about stuff like that where you send a letter in. It's a famous thing. I had Magnus Walker on, who's a Porsche fanatic.
Yeah.
And when he was 10 years old, he wrote to Porsche and said, hey, I want to work at Porsche. And they said, well, you're 10, but when they wrote him back.
I did?
Yeah, and they said, well, you're 10, but when you get older
Give us a call.
and you've gone to school and stuff, hit us up. And here he is now working with Porsche as a 40-year-old man, 47-year-old man.
So
full circle is what I'm saying is you wrote in, you didn't get anything from that, but you eventually ended up working with Jimmy Page.
how ironic, right?
Insane.
So, but what actually, to bring this back to the original point, back then, I didn't expect to get a response, and I didn't get one. Today, if somebody sends a text or a message on Facebook to an artist, and they don't get a response, they get offended.
You're so
and
right.
you can't do that. So you have to respond. And so I think, what we were saying is, what would Peter Grant have done today?
Yeah.
With social media? I mean, that's like a really poignant question, because he just didn't see the sense of doing television.
Right.
He didn't see the sense.
He thought he was giving it away. You're
He
giving
didn't
away
see
the product.
sense in putting out singles.
Yep.
If you don't put out a single, they have to buy the album.
Yeah.
He was very, very protective of his bands.
Yeah, he was.
Very. And very protective of his artists. And in that respect, he was a true gentleman. And he was a very impressive person. If you ever met him, the first time I met him, I always describe him as being a beautiful man. And I mean that. I mean, he had the most piercing blue eyes, and he was absolutely... I mean, if he walked into a place, it was so charismatic, everything would stop.
Yeah.
He had an incredible charisma. And there was a look... the best way I can describe it is, you know those old Charlie Chaplin movies?
Yep.
The black and white ones.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were all shot in orthochromatic film, which made them weird because the film only responded to blue light. So everyone's coloration was a little bizarre. The villain was always the same guy with those eyes, the big guy.
Yeah.
Very similar to that.
Oh,
like,
man.
You know, your hair would
Kind
stand
of
up on
Marty
the back
Feldman, you
on the
know.
back of your head. Well, like a big, huge guy. It was
Yeah.
like 6 foot something and 6.5 feet and very impressive. Anyway, so, but it didn't make much sense for him to do these things. So today he would probably say, and I've thought very long and hard about this. Today, nobody buys records anymore. I'm convinced that if Peter was alive today, he would say, well, if no one's buying records, we're not going to make records.
Yeah.
That's it. The only place you can see the band is live.
Yeah.
And there's another couple of angles to my theory, but I'm not going to go into them now. But in essence, that's probably what he would have said.
I believe that too. Because he'd be like, why are... And I could hear his voice in that dressing room when he's like, your boys are out there selling the shirts.
Yeah, all
Yo,
that.
boys,
We're not going to stick you on the internet and all that. Well, none of that stuff, all right? But,
He'd be like, why would we make the records?
Right.
There's no one buying them.
so, yeah.
You know?
But it's a different time, isn't it?
It really
The
is,
social
man.
media thing is a very big part and a very important part of everything we do.
I had Mark Ford on a couple weeks ago, and he's doing a Kickstarter to do his new record. And I look at things in a it's supposed to happen or something way all the time. There's no map, there's no plan for my life. But because no one bought records and they were all illegal downloading, it turned me into doing stand-up comedy. And I often think if people were still buying records, I'd probably out there just, busting my ass as a 50-year-old man trying to sell some CDs at the gigs and, still doing what I was doing. But since it was a straight cutoff, it made me do something that I always wanted to do, which was stand-up comedy. So in a weird fucking way, I'm blessed that this business went shitty because I love comedy so much. It's so weird. But in a bad way, I see all my heroes are out there starving,
A big part of life, and I'm not a fatalist. I believe that, the saying "it wasn't meant to happen" is the battle cry of the truly desperate. What we do is we can plan all we want. We can imagine and we can create. What's the word? Creative visualization. Creatively visualize what we anticipate our career is going to be. At the end of the day, it's never going to be like that. You don't know what it's going to be.
Nope.
You don't know what life's going to throw at you, and you follow it. You make changes, you make decisions as life goes on, and sometimes it takes you into a place that you never would have thought of.
That's exactly it, man.
But I think you've got to be ready to adapt to that.
Yeah.
And you've got to be adaptable. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is what you're describing is an exact example of that,
Yep.
right?
So you start playing with Jimmy Page, and you guys, it's kind of pre-firm. There's no name or anything. What songs? Is Radioactive happening? Or do you have a singer or no? You had a name? Paul Rogers isn't there yet?
Paul Rogers is going to be the singer, we know that, but he's not there yet. We did have a name. We had a fantastic experience because first day we started playing with Jimmy, it was very awkward. Like he was trying to describe something. He couldn't really play very well. He hadn't played in years.
And is he still getting high at that time?
No.
He was clean at that time, huh?
Yeah, he's cleaned up, but he just wants to get back into playing. And so he's trying to describe something. I'm writing an autobiography at the moment, and I think the way I describe it, he used to do this thing where he'd punch into the air.
Yeah.
He'd be like, look, the riff goes like this. And he would use this to try to describe this
like
offbeat.
a kung fu move?
It was like an offbeat thing he was trying to describe.
Right.
You play up on the upbeat, which they did a lot of.
Yeah.
And eventually I recognized that as something he does a lot. And all of a sudden he stopped everything and he said, look, to me and Chris, he said, look, I know you guys are probably quite nervous about playing with me, but I haven't played in several years, and I'm as nervous as you are. I'm 100 times more nervous. And with that, he broke the ice, and all of a sudden, we just started playing all the fantastic songs. We played Train Kept a Rolling. We played Communication Breakdown. We played all the stuff he loved, all the Scotty Moore stuff that he absolutely grew up loving. We played everything you can imagine. We just played for weeks and weeks.
Wow.
And
you're just playing covers for weeks and weeks to get the rust off?
And new ideas, and, let's try this. And, I came in with a new idea, and I said, here, I want to do this riff, and I want it to start on the offbeat. And we worked on this idea, and the song became Closer on the first record.
Wow.
And, I didn't get a credit on it. I guess that's the price of playing with Jimmy Page. But I did say, I do have one little comment about it, which was that he doesn't know this, but I stole that from the beginning of Misty Mountain Hop anyway.
That's awesome. He's just taking back what was his.
Absolutely.
But
it was a fantastic time. And then, I left to join Ozzy. I did a TV.
You leave this thing to join Ozzy?
No, it's very difficult. I did a TV show for somebody. Ozzy saw me on the show, called me up after the TV show, wanted to meet me, and I knew his camp. I knew Sharon, and I knew his secretary Lynn, and I knew him.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, and I went and what he said is, look, I'm getting ready to go out on the road. I've got an album that's ready to be done.
It's the
Ultimate Sin.
Ultimate Sin record.
So I spoke to Jimmy about it, and I said, I don't really know what to do. I'd love to carry on playing with you, but what's the plan here? Do we have a plan? He said, eventually we do, but not now. And probably won't be for at least another year. I thought long and hard, and I said, I'm going to do this thing with Ozzy. I told Jimmy, and we ended up staying best friends. He got Tony Franklin. Tony had been playing with Roy Harper, and Roy and Jimmy were good friends, so it was a natural, easy transition.
I met Tony Franklin last year at the Bonzo Bash. What incredible. I saw the Firm in Oakland on the first record. And I tell you what, it was fucking mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I never forgot it. Chris Slade had those giant mirrors above his kit that they dropped down, and as he soloed, they moved and you could see what he was doing. That was insane. I remember Jimmy Page played Black Summer on this little white chair.
Uh-huh.
And then when they kicked into, I think they played a Zeppelin song, maybe Kashmir or something. They played something. He kicked into it, and that chair went flying behind him, perfectly. And I remember they just fucking crushed.
I do remember that, because I saw that show at Hammersmith.
Yeah, I saw it at the Oakland Coliseum, and man, Radioactive, and I loved Paul Rogers from Free, and Bad Company not as much as Free, of course. But I was like, this is a fucking group. Then the second record was, funky. Yeah. But man, did they have the shit going on that first record.
It was a great record. I went to see it at Hammersmith Odeon. I was sat there actually with Phil Carlo, Jimmy's tour manager. And Phil and I are close friends. We're still friends. In fact, his daughter's my goddaughter, so that's how closely I was in with that whole Swan Song crowd. But we're sitting there, and the show was great, and then they go into Closer, and I turned around to Phil and said, hey, that's my song.
He's like, not anymore. Do you remember, were you around when Peter Grant passed?
Yeah.
Did you go to the funeral or anything?
No, I didn't go to the funeral.
Yeah, that was...
no, he was our manager, and then a few years later, he passed.
Yeah.
And I was long gone with Ozzy at that point.
So you get the call from Ozzy, and he says, I saw you on TV
show, yeah.
We need a bass player. Rudy left to...
No, it was Bob Daisley had left.
Oh, Bob Daisley. That's right, because it's Rudy, and he went to Quiet Riot. Then Bob Daisley came back. I forgot about that. Yeah. And then he left, and... Is the Ultimate Sin's not done yet, right?
No, it's not done yet.
Yeah, because you wrote Shot in the Dark.
Yeah, and they were auditioning bass players, so it wasn't a shoo-in. It was just like, come down, have an audition, have a play.
Do you know who else was at the auditions?
No, they went through quite a lot of people. I know there was about 40 people, and it got down to me and another guy. I don't know who the other guy was. I met him very briefly, but it came down to 2 people, and we played for a while. Funnily enough, the audition was near Brighton, and I was down spending the weekend with Phil Carlo, the same guy I'm talking about, and we were wandering around Brighton. I bumped into Ozzy coming out of a joke shop. I said, what are you doing? He goes, oh, we're rehearsing up the street. And I said, oh, you found anybody? He goes, no. And actually, I have to preface this with something else. after he saw me on that TV show, he invited me to an audition. Sharon put the kibosh on it. She called me up because she knew me, and she said, Ozzy was drunk. He didn't know what he said. Forget about it. I said, all right, no problem.
Wow.
Not a big deal. I don't give a shit. I'm going to carry on playing with Jimmy. And then I'm on this weekend vacation when I run into Ozzy, and he says, they're around the corner from there doing this audition. Go get your bass and come down. We still haven't found anybody. So I go get my bass. I drive up to London, get my bass, drive back down again, go in and start playing. And things worked really well. And they began the audition process, and I got through, and it was me and another guy, and then I got it.
Wow.
To this day, he thinks I followed him down to Brighton, which I really didn't. And he kept saying, I know you followed me down here. You were stalking me. And I said, no, I wasn't. I honestly wasn't. And then finally, I just said to him, Ozzy, would it have made any difference?
Yeah.
And he went, no. I said, can we drop it then? Because that's not what happened. I was down there visiting my friend and my goddaughter,
Yeah. So you get the gig. You remember the call? He calls up. Does he call you or does Sharon say you got the gig?
No, I was driving back from Brighton to the rehearsal room with Jake and Randy, and I'd been playing for about a week and a half with them. And then as we're driving, Jake says to me, Jake didn't say very much, but he said, I'm going to tell Ozzy that I think you're the guy. And I was like, I wasn't sure how to respond. I was like, yeah, well, that's great. I didn't want to be like over enthusiastic, and I didn't want to be like ungrateful, but I didn't want to turn into like a, like, woo-hoo, yeah. Keep some element of decorum going. So I sort of kept that in my back pocket. A few days later, it was my birthday, and Ozzy came in, and he's got me a birthday card into my hotel room, and he goes, "Oh, got your fucking card. Open it." And I said, "What?" He goes, "Open it." I said, "Oh, I'll open it." Like, "No, open it now." I said, "Okay." So I opened it, and inside it said, "Happy birthday, you old fart. Love, Ozzy." And he thought it was the funniest thing. He just cracked himself. He was in hysterics, and I thought, okay, that's odd. And he walked out, and I went, okay. And just before he walked out the door, he turned around and goes, "Oh, by the way, you got the gig if you want it." So that's how that came down.
What a great birthday present, right?
June of '85.
Wow. So you get the gig, and what? You guys start writing the record.
We've already been learning these new songs as part of the audition process.
Who was writing the songs at that time?
Bob and Jake. Yeah, most of the stuff had been pretty much written.
Right.
I don't really know too much about it. I understand that Ozzy had quite a lot of input into it. Bob certainly did. Jake certainly did. And most of the songs were done.
Right. Jake is that's a crazy era because it really changes. Ozzy's look is way different. The sound is really different. It's radio friendly. He's really glammed up. The dark side is kind of gone, and it's also it's 85, 86. Motley Crue's big. So it's a different time. The Sunset Strip's big, right?
Well, yes and yes and yes, but not necessarily in that order. Sharon told us this is probably Ozzy's last hurrah.
Wow, in 85.
In 85, because, Bark at the Moon, I guess, hadn't done quite as well as some of that they thought it might have done. And they were going to do this record, and that was going to, I don't know, that's what she said. That was going to be the end of it. So we were like, okay, we're going to have a great time with it. We go into the studio, and the record label says, well, and then it says, we don't really have the single that we want. So we start learning things like Born to Be Wild, and they got all these crazy ideas of songs to do, which I think would have been disastrous.
Classic record company shit.
Yeah.
We don't hear a single. Why don't you do, Born to Be Wild? You're like, what?
Born to be mild.
Yeah, Born to Be Mild. I'm Ozzy Osbourne, It's crazy when record companies are so fucking stupid.
Well, we don't have that anymore, do we?
No, we don't have record companies.
No, so they can keep their opinions to themselves.
Well, they burned it to the ground.
Yeah. So anyway, we go in to do this record, and then they turn around, to Jake, and they turn around to me, and Randy. They turn around to Randy. "You have any songs?" He says, "No." And asked me, do I have any songs? And I said, I got 2 or 3 things that might be appropriate. And I played them just on a guitar, guitar, actually on...
Acoustic?
Just an acoustic. I just played them shot in the dark. And they said, "Oh, this is great. Let's work this up." And Ozzy wanted to rewrite a couple of parts in here and there, and we worked it up.
Wow.
We worked it up. Had to
Dweezil Zappa's in the video.
Write some different lyrics, slightly different lyrics from the original lyrics that I'd written, and we record it. And I mean, all of a sudden, it was like a pop song, and it was like a different angle, and it was very successful, and it changed his whole look. Ozzy came in one day and said, "I'd just seen Diana Ross at the Albert Hall, and she's wearing this glass beaded costume, and she looked like $1 million, and I want to have a costume that looks like that." So he called Fleur Tamayer, and Fleur came in and designed all our costumes, and I really believe that we were probably we started a lot of that glam thing that went on. Motley Crue were different. They had more of the bondage thing, but we brought on that sequins and
Right.
And I think Ozzy's kind of embarrassed about that to this day. He doesn't like that period. With this, all of a sudden, there was tons and tons of chicks, young people in the audience. It was a whole new crowd, and it set the stage for a whole new wave of music. Dave Lee Roth, Cinderella, you name it, Whitesnake,
Poison,
Heart. All of these bands started doing the same thing. They all had the same clothing designer, by the way.
especially Whitesnake, you know?
So
they really took that and ran.
I take the point about that, but you also have to give it credit where credit's due, and it put Ozzy back on the map. I mean, it gave him a hit single, and it gave him a great deal of success. And from there, what he did afterwards was fantastic. He started kind of playing back into the kind of the dark thing that people loved so much.
Right.
But that stopped working in the mid-80s.
I get it. Listen, I'm not saying anything. I've got photos of me with sky-high hair, and that's what was going on back then. I get it. I get it. So you that song becomes a fucking hit, man.
It becomes a big hit, yeah.
And does it make you money, or are you a paid guy?
No, I have some publishing on that.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering because, of course, there's all kinds of publishing battles throughout the years with those
everybody
guys.
wants to know about the publishing dirt and stuff. Suffice it to say that, I had a problem getting paid a couple of times, but we resolved that in the early 90s, and ever since then, everything worked out fine,
Yeah.
But there's a lot of misconception about that as well, because people would say to me, "Oh, I had these big lawsuits." I didn't. I had an accounting issue, and I think that's really what happened. We had accountants trying to duke it out and
Right.
just try to get paid.
Yeah, I get it. It's so
That's
weird.
all.
When I started doing movies, the difference from playing rock and doing movies blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I did a movie, and as I'm working on the movie, every Friday, that fucking money was in the mailbox. You're like, wait, I don't have to chase anyone? I don't have to hire people? This is the money. Look at this.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it. It's so different from music.
Well, I guess. I mean, some people are much more, want to work like that, and other people don't.
Yeah.
It's not. That's not important in the big picture. The big picture is all about whether you're really doing stuff that you feel that makes you feel good.
Oh, God.
When you look back, I think, looking back at the decisions that you've made, are you happy about the decisions you made? Do you enjoy what you're doing? Do you like what you're playing? Do you like what you hear? Those are the things that are important. Money will take care of itself, I think. And, think about it. I mean, with $10,000 or $20,000 in, 20 years ago, that probably has no significant impact on a person's life today. Just pulling arbitrary numbers out of the air.
Yeah.
What does it take to have an impact?
I never ever care about the money. I don't do anything for money. If I did, I wouldn't have been a musician for 25 years. And then
you become an accountant or become a lawyer.
And then a fucking comedian now. I've always been an artist. I've been on stage 32 years. I'm just, all I talk about is, I always like to know things because of like so many people are just like broke, from music compared to movie people. When you see guys that have had hit movies and everything, they seem to have, they've got the money. You never heard about, you hear about Jack Nicholson, he did The Cuckoo's Nest and didn't get paid.
Yeah.
You never hear that. You hear about Arthur Fonzarelli on Happy Days, did Happy Days, they were huge, and he didn't get paid.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. It was a different biz when I jumped into a different platform.
Yeah.
It was like, wow.
I always wanted to get by. I always wanted to make sure my bills were paid. That was my ambition when I was a kid, was to play music and get my bills paid.
Yeah.
Anything else was going to be bonus. I'm not to say I'm an idiot, and I'm not conscious about money. I'm very conscious about it and how it plays in. But it wasn't the primary thing. And I always wanted to do something varied. I mean,
how long do you play with Ozzy? I saw that tour. But it's a gray area in my mind.
Yeah,
I saw Ozzy on every tour.
We went to, at the end of the tour, we started working on another record. I locked myself away in the studio, started writing songs. Everyone else went on vacation. Randy Castillo went skiing. Jake went to Jake Land or whatever he does. Ozzy did what he wanted to do, and I built a studio in Sharon Osbourne's basement in her office in London. And so I was there every single night, writing and developing ideas, and I'd written about 8 or 9 songs. And I came back to LA, we start working, and then Jake leaves the band.
Yeah.
Jake...
to start Badlands?
No, he just lost interest, I think. He just stopped showing up. And to this day, I don't know. I mean, people ask that question all the time. I really don't know. Something was obviously going on. He was not happy. He just wasn't showing up. And one thing led to another, and after about 3 months, they asked him to leave. And then when they did, we had to find another guitar player. So the big search began for a guitar player. Randy Castillo and myself lived in the Oakwoods here on Barham. And we went through about 400 guitar players.
Tapes? You're going through tapes and videos?
Photographs and, all that stuff.
Is it mostly just garbage, or are you seeing some good guys?
Well, you could easily sift through it very quickly.
Yeah.
But there were some, out of all of those, there were maybe 60 or 70 that were... We need to find out a little bit more about these people. And that came down to auditions, and after the auditions we ended up with 5 or 6 or 7. And one of them was Zach.
Any other famous guys in that 5?
Joe Holmes.
Joe Holmes, he was great.
Holmes,
he joined later.
He joined later, yeah. Amir Dirac.
Oh, yeah.
Was in there. Danny Ball.
Danny Ball?
Danny Ball. He's an instructor now.
Don't know him.
He was really good. Who else?
Yep.
But
you remember what Zach's tape had? Of course, he was that Jersey
not much.
kid.
I mean, it was actually, we just found him and he walked in, and actually we didn't just find him. Mark Weiss called up and said, "There's this guitar player who plays in a band called Zyrus on the East Coast, and you should check him out." So they flew him over. I went to pick him up and brought him down. And in 1980s, right, every guitar player came in with a Charvel or a Jackson.
Yep.
And they had racks and racks of equipment. Some of them had a tech. They had a roadie that came in and set stuff up. Take them about 2 hours to set shit up, and they start playing, and it was the same fucking sound.
Yeah.
Generic same sound. Like they all went to GIT, and they were all taught to play the same lick by the same person.
Just that bumblebee sound.
Yeah, and like here you can't hear it, and here it's too loud. You know, it's that weird sound. And it was just like, another one. And then finally, Zach comes in with a Les Paul. It was a very unfashionable instrument. And he says, "I don't have any effects, and I don't have an amp. Do you have an amp here?" And we have a Marshall 4x12 in the corner that nobody's touched. Everyone's playing through Randalls and stuff. That'll work. So he plugs it in, and all of a sudden the air in the room starts moving.
Yeah.
Because it's just a guitar and a Marshall.
Just tubes and speakers.
It was so refreshing.
Yeah.
And he had a confidence. I mean, he just had a confidence that was just so apparent that within 3 seconds we were like, oh my God, that's the guy.
You remember the song he whipped out? Does he play like...
We told him to play 3 songs. I think it was Crazy Train, I Don't Know, and Suicide Solution, I think.
Wow.
So those were pretty much the 3 audition songs.
And is he just crushing it? Like, holy shit.
It's fantastic. He's playing the guitar behind his back, over his head. He's got a big beaming smile.
Yeah.
He was kind of more goofy than he is now. Now he's like kind of, He-Man Viking.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, back then he was
kind of like,
he was
very young.
Yeah,
right?
he was like 19 or something. He's like a sexy Jersey kid, And even later, he really becomes cool with the bell bottoms and the...
absolutely. He had the bell bottoms back then.
Wow.
He kind of had the Randy Rhoads bell bottom slacks and stuff.
Yeah.
But he was fun. No, he was cool. He was He wouldn't wash. He smelled terrible.
Oh, yeah.
We used to
Yeah.
walk past his room and go, for fuck's sake, take a shower. Ozzy'd be like, the fuck is that smell? It's like Zach, the guitar player.
It's so weird. I can't stand when I stink. I'm like, oh, I stink. When you stink, your car stinks, your bed stinks, your couch stinks, the airplane seat you're on stinks. You know what I mean?
I don't know. My dogs, they love to make everything smell like them. So maybe that was the Zach thing. I have no idea.
God, it's
He's
crazy.
probably going to kick my ass for saying this, but that's all right. I think he's proud of it.
Yeah, oh, he is.
Yeah,
he loves
no,
that. You know, he's like,
So he owes me one then.
I was talking to somebody on the show, and he said, who was it? Blasco. And he said, yeah, one tour, he didn't shower the whole tour. Like, I didn't shower this whole tour. Like, he was down with that. Imagine his bunk. Oh, his bunk. Oh, my God. They probably had to burn that bunk, you know, like those cushions and stuff.
Well, they make these great sprays. You can get them at Petco now that actually remove odor.
Really?
You know, it's an enzyme, and it removes the odor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a chemical reaction, so
Shoot it on him when he's passed out.
maybe you can get an endorsement for that. So,
So he comes in.
yeah.
And
Kills it.
he's the guitar player.
Absolutely kills it.
And what happens from here?
We go off to England to do an album. We start working. We start rehearsing. We did a gig at Wormwood Scrubs, which is the maximum security prison in London
Really?
for lifers.
Whoa.
And we're playing this gig to 140, 150 lifers. The guy who cut off the policeman's head in the Brixton riots just jumps up on stage and he's dancing around, and I'm looking around and I'm seeing 6 prison guards, and I'm going, if a riot breaks out, there's no way we're going to get out of here.
There's only 6 guys
There's
here.
6 guys here. So we do this, and it was fun. You know, one thing just led to another. I started to get a little unhappy with some business that I was being presented with. At the same time, I had become really good friends. I'd known Billy Idol for a long time, but I became very good friends with him. And he wanted to put a new band together. And one ear, he's saying, hey, let's put a band together, let's put a band together. In the other ear, I'm getting, you know, the idea that I don't know that I'm really going to be able to come to a publishing agreement that I'm going to be happy with.
Right.
On the other side, and Zach's the golden boy. I mean, I was kind of the golden boy, you know, writing Shot in the Dark. You can write. All of a sudden, when Zach is in the band,
Yeah.
all focus is on him, and I sort of really didn't feel I was that, you know, that pivotal anymore.
Right.
So I felt less and less, you know, important. I don't want it to sound like I was insecure. It just was, you know, when all of a sudden all the attention was diverted, I just didn't think it was a big deal. I thought, well, maybe it's time for me to do something else.
Right.
And one thing led to another. Eventually I left, and I went to work with Billy.
Yeah. Now, which Billy Idol record are we talking
Charmed
about?
Life.
Charmed Life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did
Now, is
Charmed
this
Life.
after the motorcycle crash, right?
No, it's before the motorcycle.
Before the motorcycle crash.
Yeah.
Now, when you get with Billy Idol, are you writing the tunes?
No, not really.
No?
No.
Who's in the band at that
I
time?
start writing tunes
Steve
with him.
Stevens?
No, Steve's gone.
Yeah, he's gone.
We
It's
got
that.
Mark Youngersmith, and we started looking for drummers. We went through tons of drummers, and we ended up with Mike Baird from
Right.
Journey. And, you know, we started writing songs, and then one day, you know, somebody comes up to me and says, his producer comes up to me and says, you know, Billy really needs to write these songs on his own. And I was like, oh, okay. That's kind of a bit of a bummer. Because we got up every morning, we would sit there and write stuff and record things. We had a little recording set up. And I thought, oh, well, all right, well, whatever. And so I stayed in the band for a while. We did the album. It didn't end well.
No. What happened?
Billy moved out here. We spent time out here. And I think he moved out here because I was over here. And he wanted to get away from New York. And he started out really healthy and clean and everything
Oh,
else.
yeah. This is
And
the dark,
gradually it started
junky
to-
era of him, right?
Well, it's just people started appearing and hanging around that had no business hanging around a band. And there was a lot of influence. It was just not good. And eventually it just, I'm sure it was from both sides, I got fed up with hanging around with it. And, you know, and I wasn't playing along with a lot of those hanger-ons. And Billy, it wasn't about Billy. I think Billy was more, you know, he was just...
I remember seeing it on Behind the Music. He like disappeared in Thailand or something.
Yes.
I couldn't believe that
Before
actually.
that, and then I left. I left one day, and it was sad. It was sad because I loved Billy, and I didn't like the way it all went down. And his ex Perry you know, to the day, she tells me always that was, you know, we were good friends, and it was not a good situation. But and then the accident happened, and I think it brought everything to light. Everything sobered up after that.
Yeah. You guys friends now?
I see him. We just played at Lemmy's 70th birthday.
Oh, yeah,
and he was
I
there, and
yeah.
I saw him. I chatted with him for a while. It was nice, but you know, I'd love to spend more time with him. But I guess he's pretty quiet. He keeps to himself these days.
He looks great now.
He looks
right?
good. Yeah, he looks
Man.
great.
So do you. How old are you?
It's a bit leading, isn't it? I think 39 and 240 months. I don't know. No, not 240 months.
I'm going to be 50, you know, and like I have all these guys on my show that are like 60, 65 and shit. And, like Rudy Sarzo looks fucking great.
Oh, he looks great.
He looks amazing.
Amazing.
65.
I know. I'm younger than Rudy. We just shared a hotel room together at NAMM.
That's hilarious.
That's so funny. But
for the Bonzo Bash stuff. Yeah. Where do you go after Billy Idol? Do you play with people after that?
I had a band called Beggars and Thieves.
Oh yeah, Beggars and Thieves. I remember that. Who was in that band?
Ron Mancuso, Louis Merlino, and Bobby Borg.
Right.
We did an album on Atlantic Records, managed by Peter Mensch and Cliff Bernstein, Q Prime.
Great managers. Metallica people.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And for some reason we couldn't, Atlantic just wouldn't give us any love. And then we're pushing on, we're going to do another solo record. And then I hear it. I saw MTV, Vince Neil leaves Motley Crue. And I'm like, wow. Next thing I know, the phone rings and it's Vince.
Yeah.
Vince and I are very good friends, by the way.
Yeah,
We've done jams together. We're always, anytime there's a benefit jam or whatever, we're always playing together.
I love him. He's a gangster.
He's great.
He's great.
Yeah.
That first Motley Crue record is unbelievable.
Yep.
It is unbelievable.
No, absolutely.
You know, when you hear it comes on Livewire, merry-go-round and round, that whole thing, the look, the sound, it was great.
Yeah, have it dialed in, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, I remember seeing one of my favorite guitar players in the world, Mick Ronson, was talking about the first time he played with David Bowie. And he said that Bowie walked in, and he was basically, Bowie was a folk singer.
Yeah.
He played folk music on acoustic guitar.
That's right.
And what he did is he would pull in people that were very unlikely, and he continued to do that throughout his whole career. At the beginning, it was Mick Ronson. After Mick Ronson, it was Mike Garson, who was a jazz piano player. After that, it was Brian Eno, and then it was Robert Fripp, and then it was Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Nile
Rodgers.
Yeah.
People that had nothing to do with folk music, and by doing that, he had great crafted songs with such a cool spin on them. So the point is that, you know, Mick is saying that the first time he met Bowie and walked in, he said he knew straight away this guy's going to be a huge star.
Yeah.
This guy's not messing around. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he's got it in his bones.
That's what Nikki Sixx said about Vince Neil.
Yeah.
He walked in there like, whoa, look at this guy. White hair, crazy high vocals, you know.
So you knew that band was going to go places, right?
I did. When I first heard the record, I remember I bought it at Tower Records on Leather Records, their own label. The first week I hated the singing. I was like, oh, what is it? Plug me in, I'm a lamb tonight, out on the streets again.
That's very good.
Yeah, and I was kind of like, oh, this is horrible, because I was coming from, in that era of, like, let's say, Bon Scott.
Yeah, but listen, okay, so you hated that voice, but that worked because the kids who were listening to it didn't want anything you could identify with. Later on, it was like, you know, Axl Rose.
Yeah.
And we were like, you know, we'd be like, yeah, we're fans of Motley Crue, but Axl Rose, that voice is horrible, and the kids are going, great. If you don't like that voice, then that works for us.
Yeah.
Because you're always trying to identify with something that the previous generation does not like.
But I only didn't like it for about a week. That's what I'm saying. I put it on, I was like, I don't know, man. And then a week later, I was like, this is the goods. I remember, all of a sudden I was just in love. I was obsessed with the record. I saw them. They played Santa Rosa Fairgrounds on Halloween. It was like $5. Played this fucking huge Halloween show. Nicky lit his boots on fire. Vince wore like red leather. I go, I'm in. This is the band for me, man. And also, when I heard Axl from day one, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I was like, wow, is this like 3 singers? You know, like, all that. He had different voices going and shit. But yeah, so you played with Vince.
Well, Vince, yeah, he calls and actually he called and his manager Bruce Bird, Jack Blades, the three of them called me up. So we got to put a band together with Vince. You know, he needs to do this thing. So Jack said that he and Tommy Shaw had written a song, and we're going to shoot a video for it. And then my friend Sam Kennison died.
Oh, you were friends with Sam?
Very close friends with Sam.
Wow.
Sam, Randy Castillo and I lived at the Mondrian, and we used to go to the Comedy Store all the time.
Well, this is great.
Yeah, because we were good friends with Angel Salazar and with Stephen Bauer, who were in Scarface.
Wow, the Scarface, yeah, and Angel was a comic, yeah.
So we used to go there. Check it out, man. That guy.
Yeah.
We're talking about 87, 86, 87.
Oh, 86, 87, and you're living at the Mondrian.
Right.
How rock is that?
Well, yeah, David Coverdale lives next door, you know.
Really?
Yeah, I see David all the time.
Yeah, across the street from the Comedy Store, man.
Right.
So you could just stumble over there.
We did, and we did every night. That was our last port of call on the way home.
Because I was going there about 88, 89.
Really?
Dice and Sam.
Sure.
Yeah. So
I was in that movie, in Ford Fairlane.
You were in which movie?
Ford Fairlane.
Oh, yeah, you were?
Yeah,
Ford
yeah.
Fairlane. Wow.
Well, it's Vince, Randy, me, and Carlos Cavazza.
Wow. So how do you meet Sam?
We go in there, right? And then one night, there's this guy yelling and screaming at this Japanese girl.
Yeah.
His girlfriend. Her name was Tamara Otsuka.
Yeah.
And she was a comedian. She said, my name Tamara Otsuka.
Uh-huh.
Tamara, it mean a pearl. And Otsuka, harbor. That was her thing. And he was screaming. They were having a full-blown fight argument, marital argument on stage. He was screaming at her. People had walked out, and there was Randy, myself, and maybe a can of soup left in there. And all of a sudden, we looked at each other, and we went, oh, my God, this is really funny.
Yeah.
Hold on, this is a comedy. This is part of the thing. And that was his shtick, right? He used to scream and yell. We became introduced. We introduced ourselves. We became best friends, and we'd hang out.
Yeah,
the three of us.
Now, was Rudy around too? Because he played on Wild Thing.
No, this is way before then.
Wow.
And then we went away. We went to Tahiti. Billy and I and Randy went to Tahiti. And then while we're there, we said to Billy, we got to introduce you to this friend of ours, Sam Kennison. You're going to love him. We get back to LA. We introduce him. Then gradually we introduced all the music people to Sam.
Yeah.
So he met everybody through us.
Wow.
And Randy and I stayed really good. Let me back up. We were all very good friends. When Sam went to get married, he cleaned up his act. I'm jumping forward a long way here.
Yeah.
He cleaned up his act, and he did a gig at Trancas. And he called us. He said, "You got to come to Trancas because I'm not going to swear. I'm not going to say anything, and I want to know if I'm still funny."
Yeah.
And we went up there, and he didn't swear. And he was hysterical. He was fucking hysterical.
Wow.
He was so great. And right after that, he got married, and they were going on his honeymoon. On the honeymoon, and then he said, "Yeah, I want you guys to come on the honeymoon." So Randy and his girlfriend at the time, myself, and then something was going on. I couldn't go. And I remember thinking. I said this in the Randy Castillo movie. I was like, guy wants us to come on his honeymoon? Why?
That's wild.
Randy went.
Yeah.
Randy comes back. He comes back a day later, gets in a car to do a show in Laughlin and gets killed.
Yeah.
That was the end of that. He was in the car, and in the car in front was Carl LeBeouf, who always was used to open up.
Always his opener, yeah.
Yeah, and Carl was awesome. And that's how it all went down. So the day of his funeral, ironically, is the day that we're doing the Vince Neil You're Invited and Your Friend Can't Come video.
Oh, man.
So I go to the funeral at Forest Lawn, and afterwards I go to this video, and somehow I thought, well, maybe this is a tribute to Sam. Because Sam was always a good friend, and he always used to say the same thing. He's like, man, you're going to go places. You're going to do, amazing things. I know you're going to do great things. And ironically, this whole new project starts up when he checks out.
Wow.
I guess I read something into it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we do the video, and
that's crazy.
And then
man.
we move on. We start doing the record. So all the songs I wrote for Ozzy and Sharon's Basement that I never got to put on the Ozzy album, they go right onto Vince's album.
Oh, that's amazing.
So if you listen to that album, the first track, Look in Her Eyes, right? is like Bark of the Moon. It's like that kind of one of those Ozzy riffs.
Yep.
There's a song called The Edge that I wrote. I modeled it after SATO. Okay, so all these songs they're definitely Ozzy songs.
Yeah. That's wild, right?
Yeah, so, you know.
And then it's funny too. Like later, maybe Ozzy heard it and went, "We should have done those songs."
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd like to think so, but I don't know. It was cool.
Well,
You know.
well, man, what a great life you've had in rock, right?
Oh, it still continues, I hope.
I know.
You know,
rock and roll.
we've had a 2016 that has been so devastating.
Brutal.
And it's just been like
Paul
somebody's...
Kantner died today.
Huh?
Paul Kantner died today.
Really?
Yep, from the Starship airplane.
It just doesn't end, does it?
I can't believe
I mean,
it.
Jimmy Bain.
Jimmy Bain.
Jimmy, I lived with Jimmy. When I moved to LA in the 80s, I mean, I lived at his house. We were very close friends. I'd known him since Wild Horses back in London. I mean, David Bowie, Jimmy, Chris Squire last year.
Yeah, and Scott Weiland. And Glenn Fry. I mean, Glenn Fry, dude.
I know.
That's one that's kind of crazy to me. Like, and Lemmy. You know, of course, Lemmy.
I played at his
Yeah, we were
birthday.
there at his birthday party.
And I talked to him for quite some time afterwards. You know, Lemmy, I'd met him in the late 70s in a pub in West Hampstead and playing the fruit machine. We call what do you call them? Slot machine, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I met him and, you know, he liked me, I think, because we stayed friends for all these years. And he saw me from nothing, from nobody, just coming up through the ranks.
Yep.
Neil Murray was the guy who kind of took me under his wing to help bring me up into the business. So, you know, I guess that was worth something to Lemmy. And, well, I don't know if it was or if it wasn't, but he was a guy, if he liked you, he liked you. If he didn't like you, he was like, fuck off, you know, I don't like you. But he was always really cool. When we were rehearsing with Jimmy, we worked at No Miss, which was a big rehearsal studio in London. It was owned by Simon Napier Bell, who I'm working with now on the Rock Vault.
Wow.
But Simon backwards is No Miss, and that he owned the studio. So all the bands used to work there. Thin Lizzy, Whitesnake, us.
It's like the Mates of London.
It was like the Mates of London, exactly. And I was next door to Motorhead and playing with Jimmy. And so, you know, I introduced... Lemmy came up to me and goes, I want to meet Jimmy. Can you introduce? I introduced him, and he'd known me all this time.
That's
and then
crazy.
when I saw him at his 70th birthday, you know, I went up and talked to him after the show, and I talked to him for quite a length of time. I could barely hear him. He was very weak. And like, my friend Robin McCauley and I joke about him. You always ask him how he's doing. He'd say, so far, so good. You know, that was his thing, right?
Yeah.
And it just came out of left field. 4 or 5 days later, he was
Couldn't believe it, man. I couldn't believe it.
And Todd Singerman, his manager, I don't know. It just felt, it was such a shock.
It really was. Because we were just there.
Yeah.
And we're celebrating number 70, the cake, the jams.
Yeah.
And great vibe that night.
What a fantastic evening it was.
Incredible, that tribute video they put together. And
I love that.
I love that.
They should put that out because
They
it
should
was
put that out
fantastic.
right now, man. I love getting older, but I fear death. I don't fear death. I just don't want to die. But I'm not the guy that, like, I want to look young and sexy. I just love being 50.
Evidently.
Yeah, I love being 50 and living, you know what I mean? And doing comedy, and the longer I live, it's just incredible every year. Like right now, this show, and I'm a comedian, and I'm living in LA, and I'm eating great sushi with you. It's like, this shit is great. And you know, I just feel like when you get to this age and you go to doctors, at one point he's just going to come in and he says, cancer. It's just the food, it's the water, it's the air.
I don't know what it is, but, you know, I do believe that people are ready or they're not ready.
Right.
And there was a beautiful, beautiful article written about Bowie by this one guy, and he talks about, at the very end, he says, you know, everybody was so shocked about Bowie's passing. Nobody was ready for him to go. In fact, the only person who seemed ready for him to go was David himself.
Crazy. Now you're doing the Rock Vault and at the Tropicana in Vegas.
Exactly.
And Macaulay is in
Robin
that.
Macaulay, yeah.
From Macaulay Shanker, man.
A lot of people in that.
Yeah, there is. There's
Doug Aldridge,
from Heart. You got
Howard Leese.
Yeah, Howard Leese. And Rough Cut Singer is Paul Shortino. Is he in that?
Paul Shortino, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And who's the drummer?
Jay Shellen.
All right. Who did he play with?
Oh, Jay was in Hurricane. He's a phenomenal drummer, and then he was in a recent version of Asia. But he is a fantastic drummer, very prog rock drummer. Interesting. Nick Lucchetti is a drum teacher in Albuquerque. Who was his teacher? He was Randy Castillo's teacher.
Wow.
So, funnily enough, I played. My best friend in the world was Randy. I played with him, and now I get to play with Jay.
That's funny, right?
Different drummers, but they have this. We have this same connection through Nick.
I was doing comedy at the Tropicana about 4 weeks ago for a week, and I was like, finally, I'm going to get to hang out with Rock Vault, man. I'm going to go in there and try to sing, or whatever. And it was, I saw drummer for Pantera.
Vinny.
Yeah, I saw him coming out.
Vinny Paul, yeah.
Yeah, Vinny Paul. And then I text Tracy, and he goes, oh, yeah, this is the last night. They're going dark for 2 weeks. I was like, what? I just got here, man. I was so bummed.
It's fun. I have a great time.
People love it.
It's a little Groundhog Day.
Yeah,
I mean, especially I stay at the hotel when I'm doing it, so I wake
it's
up.
So weird, right?
And I do the exact same thing every single day.
And that hotel has zero ventilation, man. It's old, so it's like the cigarette smoke really gets me. I'll be there for 10 days.
Honestly, I like that hotel. I prefer it. I've worked at all the hotels. I mean, we've done a lot of the rock fantasy camps at all the hotels, at the MGM Grand, at the Mandalay Bay, at the Monte Carlo. And of all of the hotels, that one's got a kind of very lax, cool vibe about it. It's like a Florida hotel or something.
It really is, yeah. But I'm just saying, boy, I'm just not used to cigarettes anymore.
No, me neither. But in summertime, I'm out by the pool the whole time, or in the gym, or.
Yeah, boy, it's like I walk through there, I'm like, whoo, man, I bring my worst clothes when I go to Vegas.
The whole of Vegas is like that.
I know,
it's
really
like one big ashtray.
It is. It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Well, shit, man. When you guys playing again up there?
I'm back out in February. Actually, in 2 weeks.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, and then we got some plans to do some. They want to take that thing on the road, and I've been talking to them about that for this summer. But in the meantime, there's other plans. Plans to do stuff. I have a couple of solo albums out, and I started working on another solo record. My solo records have nothing to do with what you'd expect. They're very commercial.
Yeah.
Very commercial songs, and maybe that's best kept for my solo stuff. Because a lot of people expect me to be doing Ozzy stuff all the time, or kind of heavier rock stuff, which I love. It's just when I write songs, I tend to write with a sensibility that comes from, my influences. Yeah. Beatles, Bowie, that kind of stuff.
Catchy hooks.
Even free.
Fun stuff.
So that's what I write. But this album, I stopped all of a sudden and said, I really would like to do this as a band.
Yeah, that's
cool. So I've been talking to a couple of people, and we're going to see. Phil X. Yeah, we've been talking. We have a band with Brian, the three of us, Phil, myself, and Brian Tishy, called Three. It's a great name for a band.
Yeah,
right? Three.
Yep.
It's funny because I'm Phil and Phil X is Phil, and Brian felt left out, so he changed his name to Phil Tishy, but spelled with an F.
Yeah,
Phil Tishy, right? But I think he's kind of busy, and I don't know. Vinny had been talking about maybe doing this together, so we're going to see.
Yeah, that's cool.
People used to say, I can't talk about it, but I don't give a shit. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
If we can make it work, we'll make it work, and if we can't, then we'll do something different. But that's sort of what's going on right now.
That's great, man. Your restaurant's fantastic.
Thank you very much.
I got to get a couple more pieces here.
We are. We're going to hang up with all you people, you good people there at home, and we're going to indulge in some more creative genius from Chef Go over there, who is a wonderful person.
Unbelievable food.
Please come in. If you ever come here, Kaiju Sushi of Sherman Oaks. It's on Ventura Boulevard,
and Woodman.
Right where Woodman crosses it. And you come in here and you ask to sit in front of Chef Go and just say, just give me what you think I should eat.
Right next
You're
door
gonna
to
have
the
an incredible experience.
Orange Julius. Remember that?
Do you remember that?
Yes.
That's gone now.
It's gone.
I've been here too long, if I remember that, right?
I loved it.
I mean, not too long. I mean, I've been here a long time.
And that amp shop was unbelievable.
Across the street,
I loved it
right?
because they would have all the boutique amps. They would have Orange. They'd have Matchless. They'd have Bad Cat. They would have all the hand point-to-point wired amps. I loved them, man. You go in, and then they had just a room. You could turn them up and play them. What a great shop. They moved somewhere, I guess. There's a sign that says moved.
I don't know where they moved
I
to.
couldn't read it, but I was going to check it because I want to go see their new place.
Yeah, I mean, they have,
Yeah.
they have great
shit.
amps over there.
They did, man. All right, were you going to come to my birthday party Tuesday?
Where is it?
It's at the El Rey.
I will come on Tuesday. I'm not doing anything.
You got to come, man.
The next thing I'm doing is playing with Tracy.
Oh, yeah, where at?
Canyon Club?
Oh, Canyon Club.
Yeah, I'm doing a few gigs with him. He's doing the LA Guns first album, remember?
Oh, yeah, that was great. All right.
We played. What are you talking
We
about?
played.
Hold on a sec. Duh.
All right, man.
Hey.
Well, thank you so much
Awesome.
for doing
Thank you.
the
This
show.
has been really fun. I
Yeah.
had a great time here. Thank you so
Awesome, man.
much.
Finally got you on.
Yeah.
Super cool.
So
okay.
please, you guys out there, follow me on Twitter at Phil Soussan.
Yeah, spell it.
And PhilSousan.
There you go.
And also I have an official Phil Soussan page on Facebook or just philsoussan.com.
Dope.
And you're going to teach me how to work my Instagram properly. So
I am going to. And
very
it's
soon I'll have an Instagram.
We're going to
It's
set it on
at
fire.
Phil Soussan.
It's going to be great.
Right.
Let's set it up now while we're eating.
Absolutely. Great.
Okay.
All right.
Love you, man. There you guys go.
go.
See you guys.
Thank you.